Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bria.
And I'm Jesse.
And we're so thankful that you've joined us again to watch another video in
the Y series.
I am an American, but I did live in Ukraine for about 30 years. And Jess has been real connected now to Ukraine since we met for like the last 4-ish years. There is history here with Ukraine. There's been a lot of research Jess has put in years now of reading books and reading sources, expert historical sources and geopolitical sources on Ukraine. So we feel like we're coming at this with a little bit of expertise.
Maybe. You have experiential expertise at least. Yeah, this series is really important to us. The first one was the basic why question of why did Russia invade Ukraine? So you can go back and watch that video. This particular why question has to do with America, and maybe the second most asked question to us is, why is America supporting Ukraine? Why is American support for Ukraine important? And so we're gonna look to see some of those answers today. So the first reason why America should support Ukraine is the Budapest Memorandum. And that might be like, well, what is that? Well, basically, in 1991, the Soviet Union fell. It fell apart and splintered into multiple
Thank God.
Republics. Yeah, thank God, including Ukraine. It became its own country.
I also just want to make clear right here, Ukraine did not begin to exist in 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. Ukraine has existed long before even Russia existed. It's a very old, ancient nation, peoples, and they've been around for thousands of years, long before America even existed. The village that I lived in Ukraine for many years
so from like the 1300s or
1200. So
amazing.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear that Ukraine is not a new country. This is not a new nation. This is a very ancient civilization.
Mm-hmm. Right. In 1991, they were able to become part of the global stage as their own country with their own borders and national identity.
Yeah.
Well, along with the splintering of the Soviet Union, so splintered the nuclear arsenal of the Soviet Union. And therefore, Ukraine kept a lot of the nuclear armament that was on its land.
Ukraine actually had, at the fall of the Soviet Union, the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world.
Wow. The Budapest Memorandum was basically this agreement between America, the Brits, and Russia and Ukraine that said, hey, Ukraine, if you give up all of those nuclear missiles, then we will defend you if need be. To quote the memorandum, in exchange, the United States and Britain promised to provide assistance to Ukraine if Ukraine should become a victim of an act of aggression, while Russia pledged to, quote, refrain from this threat or the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of Ukraine. Will America keep its word? We know that Russia obviously did not keep its word, but will America continue to support the territorial and national identity and integrity of Ukraine? The second reason why America should continue to support Ukraine is because Ukraine is a democratic ally. The more that the West helps Ukraine now, the less that Ukraine is going to have to utilize the West in the future. They're not looking for a handout. They are looking for the West, Western Europe and America, to invest into their present. And then eventually, as democracy continues to grow and to take hold in Ukraine, that investment is going to be repaid. Russian ideology demands that people groups and nations bow before them.
And as we discussed in the last video, the Russian Empire constantly needs to be expanding. And you can see that throughout history, and we're seeing that right now with Ukraine, and Ukraine will not be the last. Russia's not going to stop with Ukraine.
A strong democratic Ukraine will join the rest of democratic Europe to provide a solid wall against that Russian expansionism. Okay, a third reason why America should continue to help Ukraine is a tough one because it seems a little insensitive, but it has to do with financial savings, which every government has to deal with. I wanted to just give some dollars, but just for comparison, America was in Afghanistan for 20 years. It cost America about $300 million a day to be in Afghanistan. So about $2.31 trillion plus American lives lost to be in Afghanistan. With care for the wounded, vets, as well as interest payments, this total eventually could be about $6.5 trillion for us to be in Afghanistan. And I'm not saying whether that was good or bad. I'm just saying that's what the numbers look like. This makes our help to Ukraine at about $77 billion, even though that's a whole lot of money. It seems like a drop in the ocean and a no-brainer. The upside of our giving to Ukraine, as far as its entrance into democracy into Western Europe, is likely to have a far greater value than some of the aid that we have given to other global needs.
Absolutely. Ukrainians want democracy. They've proven that they will lay down their lives to fight for their own democracy, just like Americans did once upon a time.
If Ukraine loses, the cost would be astronomical. If Ukraine loses, Russia would probably create like a triumvirate between Ukraine and Belarus and Russia, and then the aggression of Russia will have one more entry point into Europe. Former National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley went so far as to say this triumvirate between Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia would then encroach on the territories of the Baltic states, on Romania. They might even try to create a land bridge with their exclave in Kaliningrad, which is further into Western Europe. Moldova would be imperiled as well. So this would then cause massive and catastrophic issues economically and nationally, internationally, with all sorts of unforeseen costs that it would take for the United States to be able to defend these areas of Western Europe. But this is really important for us to realize that Ukraine hasn't asked for any American boots to be on the ground. Now, we know there are Americans that are on the ground. There are ex-military that have picked up weapons and they believe in the cause of Ukraine and they're going to fight. But active military from the United States is not being asked by Ukraine at all. Right now, we have given a significant amount to Ukraine, but it is not costing us nearly the amount that it will cost us in the long run if we don't continue to help them win this war. Okay, so the fourth reason why America should support Ukraine is because of strengthening alliances. Over the years, America and American politicians have complained about the fact that NATO governments, they haven't helped as much as they should to be able to create global safety for countries that are within their sphere of influence. Well, when it comes to Ukraine, 16 NATO countries increased their defense spending in 2022, and a lot of that allotment goes to buying new goods and send their older stuff to Ukraine. And then you've got Sweden and Finland, who were neutral. They weren't part of NATO at all. They joined NATO this last year, and part of that is purely because if you go back and read some Russian forums and some different things, which I've done, and I've used Google Translate, thank you, but they have talked about taking over Finland again. Russians have talked about they want to take over those Scandinavian countries. And so Finland and Sweden, they're like, okay, that's it. We want to protect democracy and we want to protect our territorial borders, which they share, especially Finland shares with Russia. And so those alliances continue to be strengthened. Besides that, the governmental agencies across the democratic world are talking to each other far more constructively than they have. They have a sort of a common enemy, and they have a common goal to create safety and prosperity, and that is very helpful. All right, so the fifth and final reason why America should continue to help Ukraine is because America does the right thing. I know that seems silly, but in the past, when it comes to war, we've always wanted to place ourselves on the right side of moral history. We've wanted to be upright. Now we fail. We all fail every day as individuals and as a country, but we really do want to be a country that upholds true moral fortitude. In his Evil Empire speech, Ronald Reagan talked about that America can't remove itself from trying to discern what is good and evil and right and wrong, and that we always want to be on the side of the struggle of right and good. Our nature as a country is to come alongside countries to promote our values. And it's not just American imperialism, but it's saying, hey, countries, your people should be free. You should be able to say the things that you want, even if it's in the face of the sins of the government, so to speak. And that freedom that America holds so diligently is the freedom that other countries and other people groups also look to us for. That's part of the reason why so many people from repressive regimes or struggling countries are seeking to come to America, because they know that we stand for what is right and good, and we try our best as a country to uphold those values, not only in our country, but in other countries as well. And we want a successful Ukrainian campaign because we want our values to triumph over governments that are repressive on their populations, that they repress human rights, that they threaten peace and security of other countries and other nations. And a Ukrainian victory promotes freedom.
Yeah, and in the territories of Ukraine where Russian forces have occupied, they've lost the freedom to go to church. They've lost the freedom to even fly their own flag as Ukrainians. They've lost the freedom to speak their own thoughts and their own opinions. They've lost all of their freedoms.
We know pastors that have been tortured with electricity. We've seen the repression of a state that is not free. We want there to be peace and security in the world. And America has always sought for that to be predominant. So America should do the right thing. And we've listed out a bunch of reasons why America should continue in that way. But there's also a moral tale to be told here, that we should support them because it's just right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching, y'all. And again, let us know if any questions came up in your mind while you were watching this video, or questions that you have concerning other talking heads that you've watched and things that they've said about Ukraine. Please leave those in the comments. And we would love to make a video addressing your why question.
Absolutely.
God bless y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.